Our next presenter is Emily Wood, who is a PhD candidate at the Department of Speech-Language Pathology with her talk titled Turning the Page on Unfair Reading Screening.
How often do you read? Probably every day. At school, work, and your social life, reading is essential for participation, and it's a fundamental human right. But up to 50% of children globally have reading difficulties. And early reading screening is instrumental in identifying these difficulties so that intervention can be provided. But most early reading screeners have been developed exclusively for English monolinguals. These screeners evaluate what kids already know about reading in English and compare what they know to their peers to determine if they're at risk for difficulty. So why is this a problem? Well, by a show of hands, how many of you here speak another language besides English? This makes sense. About 40% of our Canadian population is bilingual, and these English reading screeners can be biased against bilinguals. If a bilingual does poorly on an English test, we can't be sure if it's because they actually have reading difficulty or if it's just because they've had different or less experience with English. To illustrate this linguistic bias, let's put you back in kindergarten, and I'll ask you to read the word on the left-hand side of the slide here. I bet most of you can't because you have no experience with these Cherokee letters. But based on the results of this unfair and inaccurate reading screener, you would all be misidentified as at risk for reading difficulty. And in schools, this misidentification means that limited educational resources get misallocated and don't go to students who truly need them. So how can we more fairly and accurately evaluate reading abilities when every child has unique language knowledge and experience? Well, what if instead of testing what you already know about reading in a language, I evaluated your ability to learn reading skills? In my doctoral work, I developed a test to do just that. The Dynamic Omni-Language Literacy Screener, or DALI. DALI is dynamic. This means it incorporates teaching, prompting, and feedback in the test, so we can document how the child learns. For example, if I teach you that the symbols on the right-hand side of the slide make the e, b sounds, I bet you could learn to sound this word out as meeb. DALI is also unique because instead of using English words, letters, and sounds, I use made-up non-words, novel symbols, and sounds common to most languages, putting all children on an even linguistic playing field and further reducing bias. In my pilot project, educators administer a traditional English test and DALI to bilingual kindergartners. And I find that 76% of bilinguals perform in the at-risk range on the traditional test, suggesting bias. But their performance on DALI was much more variable. Many of the students were able to learn in the test, meaning they're likely to learn in the classroom too. With DALI, we focus on what students can do, how best to support their learning, and we're better able to identify those who are likely at risk for reading difficulty. Developing fair and more accurate reading screeners is critical because all children, regardless of the languages they speak, deserve the right to read. Thank you.